Folks, you're with Tacitus Today. Tacitus Today, your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this audio live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about are we run in the Western world? Are we run by the puppets that are controlled by the World Economic Forum and the globalist big money guys like BlackRock and so on? And are these people an elite class that they're all ideologically as one? They're fellow travellers, with their sycophants and flunkies and hangers-on. And do they all sort of know each other, agree with each other, have exactly the same values, sneer with disdain at the rest of us, and believe themselves to be the true inheritors of the earth? And they all know each other from the same schools and colleges and universities, and so they all march together in the same climate protests and things like that. There is something to be said for that, but a little bit more nuanced, and so I'd like to sort of get into it. Now, part of the claim is that we are the educated, the highly educated, the super educated, the fucking geniuses, and all those troglodytes, knuckle dragging their way along the street. They're the hoi polloi, and we are the chosen ones. So now there's merit in that view, but let's get into that, and I'll sort of talk about a couple of examples. Whenever in a business context, whenever we meet or go into, say, a place where there's lots of bureaucrats, could be a government department, could be a NGO-funded think tank or a quango or anything like that. Normally, say you haven't met someone before, and you say, "Well, I'm Billy Bob from so and so," and just the other person says, "Well, I'm Billy Jean or Jimmy Jack," or whatever. You can just introduce yourselves. There's the handshaking. How do you do? And isn't it a nice thing? That basic sort of stuff. And you say the company you're from or that you're representing, and then you talk about why you're there. Well, we're here to talk about turning cartwheels or swinging from the chandelier, and you state and then you get down to business. That's typically how I understand things. Now, that's changed. Not so much in the private sector, although you do see a bit of that creeping in, but the typical response is, and today, and I get this probably most of the time, in fact, it's quite rare that I don't, where the government employee or the bureaucrat says, "So, Billy Bob, where did you go to university?" That's like the opening. That is like the bureaucratic handshake today. Where did you go to university? And you say, "Oh, do you know Professor so-and-so? Or do you know lecturer this? Or do you know so-and-so who probably would have done that course at around the time you were there? And my sister married Professor so-and-so," and that. So you get that type of thing. And I get that pretty much all the time. Why do you give a fuck where I went to university or where I went to high school or so on? Now, they didn't all go to private high schools. Many did, but not all. Some went to state schools. I went to a private school and then later a state school, so I kind of got a bit above. But in university terms, there was a sort of what in Australia referred to as the sandstone universities. That is the original sort of university, because going to university used to be a very elite pursuit. Say 2 or 3% of the kids that finished high school went to university. That's how rare it was. Certainly when I was, leaving high school anyway and going to college. But today, of course, it's different. In Australia, more than half the kids that even start high school are going to university. Doing a lot of bullshit courses like lesbian dance theory and things like that. But so these are the sort of things. Where did you go to school, or where did you go to college, rather? The school will come as the second question often. And So I say, and they, oh, well, do you know Professor so and so, and or did you? Oh, and if you say no, I don't remember Professor. Oh, they think Professor this, and so you have to know people that they know, not in work, not in business, not in any sense of achievement or accomplishment, but in in where you went to college or where you went to school. Or university in this case. That is the thing. They don't care where you worked. They don't care what you did. They don't care what you achieved. They don't care what you've accomplished. They don't care why you're there. Excuse me. They don't care why you're there to meet them or what you're there to talk about, what business you work for. They don't care about any of that. But they do really care about where you went to university. That is really important to them. And I've sort of been surprised by that. And you can go into a room where there's 10 people, because one thing about bureaucracies is they always manage to have 5 times as many people in the room for the meeting as need to be there. That's something that's their particular accomplishment. So you wonder why are these people even fucking here? Because they've all got nothing to fucking do. Now, some of these people are quite well paid. So when I say well paid, somewhere between 5 and 10 times the average wage, which is, when you're looking towards 10 times the average wage, which is about what you need if you're going to get ahead in a place like Sydney, then they're doing quite well. But if you're in that sort of elite group, then you're one and only one in every 500 workers is getting paid that sort of money. So are an elite group in terms of your income, and certainly the job stability, because these people often have sort of jobs for life. They never seem to be out of a job, and if they leave one government department, it's like in microseconds later that they're in another job in another department. So they've effectively got a job for life, a well-paid one that doesn't require them to perform. When you talk about job performance and what are they achieving, producing, creating, they don't seem to want to talk about those sorts of things. And the reason for that is that they can't, because they don't produce, create, or achieve anything. They're there to administer globalist policy, World Economic Forum talking points. They're there to do that, and that they see as an accomplishment. Just to sort of test the theory, at one meeting I was at, where again they said, well, where did you go to university? Oh, do you know Professor Sons? Once they start, which they all seem to start with that, I thought, well, I'll see what happens if I say something crazy. It's oh no, I dropped out of school at 14, and I can't even sort of count to 2. So, and I came out with something like that, and you seemed that there was this stunned silence in the room as everyone got whiplash, as all heads turned around and looked. They couldn't believe it, as if, oh wow, you're an alien from another planet or something. You're not someone worthy of respect. What can I say? So it was interesting. No, just joking, folks. So, but I can't. I find it's difficult for them to get around that. They have to assess you They have to assess you ideologically. They can't assess you for your accomplishments or lack of them, the case may be. So provided you're ideologically in the right space, you can have no accomplishments. You can actually destroy things. That doesn't matter because you're ideologically in the right space. There's also that all of them have worked for or been involved with, in some form, the NGOs, the globalist controlled and funded NGOs. So they have a view that this is some sort of rite of passage. So instead of working at say when they're still at high school, and they're typically you'd get a job, or I certainly did, and it seemed to be the thing for quite a while. You'd get a job at like a takeout food store, or say a local, I got a job at one of the local grocery stores as pushing a broom and, push and try, just doing general dog's body type stuff. And when you're 14 and so on, I remember I was paid back in the day, I think it was, 80 cents an hour or something. I thought I was hot shit too. But anyway, that was, this is while I'm still at school. I'm just getting a bit of extra money so I can buy the latest hits and music albums, things like that. So, but that's not the case anymore. That's something that only working class yobs do, and people from low-life families. What these folks do is they go on working at NGOs or as interns or just as volunteers for NGOs, collecting, or it could be collecting money, it could be protesting, it could be whatever. But that's that's what they do, and they're given a they're given quite a it's an indoctrination program, I guess, but they're also indoctrinated, of course, at high school, and they're encouraged by teachers and given time off to go and attend climate change marches and protests and whatever else, and marching against violence, marching for violence against women, and all these sorts of causes. So they're very ideological. They're not marching for the cause of people to have affordable housing. They're not marching for the cause of people to have affordable food. They're not marching for the cause of affordable energy. They're not marching for the rights of old people not to freeze to death in whatever accommodation they may have. They're not marching for the homeless people. They're not marching for any of those things. They're marching and protesting for the height of cool ideology. We all know the world's going to end in 5 minutes unless we stop oil, and anyone who opposes us is Hitler. And so they're super ideological, but they fancy themselves as being, we're super educated. We're the most educated generation which is probably true, by the way. We're the most educated generation to ever exist, and we're educated, and therefore we have a right to run the country and to determine the values that should be instilled within the rest of us for running the country. And those knuckle-dragging, Neanderthal, hoi polloi, working class, low-life, stay in 2-star hotel motherfuckers, they've got no right, should have no right. They're just populists. They're just subject to populist appeal. They're just the people who will be appealed to by Hitler. They're like Hitler, and they're against mass migration because they're racists, just like Hitler. And so there's not a whole lot of thought that goes into it. They're ideologically programmed like fucking robots. So this idea that they're educated, the education must have all been on some sort of online correspondence course and just all got lost in cyberspace or got lost in the post or something, because it doesn't appear to have had any effect. Now, I know people personally who are in this group, and I sort of marvel at their stupidity. Now, I don't deny that they've spent many years at university. They've got their masters and their PhDs, and often in useless courses, by the way. But I don't have a PhD. And there was a time when if someone with a PhD walked in the room, when I was a young guy, everyone was in reverential awe of the person. This person has, their achievement, their academic achievements are because there's so few PhDs around the place. I met a doctor of PhD, and I was, early 20s, I suppose, a doctor of, I think it was metallurgy, or something like that. And I was in awe of the guy. I admired the hard work he'd put into it, the intellect, the whole sort of thing, and the fact that he'd been, I think it was 7 or 8 years at university busting his ass, and he was you could see it. He just had Mr. Conscientious sort of all over it. But that's changed. Every black lesbian you meet now has got a fucking PhD, so it's been seriously devalued. But these people actually believe themselves to be a superior class because they did some activist bullshit course in university. And I don't know how you would see yourself as an elite anything. I did some sort of. Here's an example. Here's a woman who was. So I decided to pursue this because all she was talking about was university, and I think it's because these people are actually pretty dumb. They're pretty stupid, and they know that deep down. So they think now they've got a degree, they can pretend to be the erudite geniuses that they wish they were, but they know they're not. I think that's one of the things. So she did a course in, I think it was in international business or something along those lines. But in all these courses now, they offer an essay option for the thesis and for the final, the various annual testing and so on. They offer you a course. Explain how international business relations have impacted the lives of women. Now that is actually a question, like an optional question on the exam. What? Don't talk about what you've studied for 3 years. Just talk about how this might have, like in some sort of vague, miasma of smoke and mirrors. To explain how international business relations might have impacted the lives of women. That's a serious essay to write. And you'll find that most female students, not all, but most female students will opt for that sort of thing, but they still come out with a degree. Now, I've interviewed sort of candidates for various roles, including engineering, and the female and the minority engineering students are obviously being given a free pass, clearly and obviously given a free pass, whereas the straight white males either still have to pass or they believe that they have to pass legitimately through hard work and study and application. But the minorities don't. They're entitled to a fucking degree. If they don't get one, then it's racist misogyny and it's Hitler. So you've got a lot of very ordinary people with minimal intellectual capacity running around believing, and somehow, I don't know how can people this stupid really think they are the inheritors of the earth? But all these stupid people running around thinking that they're the elites, and their value system, their ability to discern and to deduce and to calculate is far in excess of anyone. And people that are not from their class are not even the shit on their shoes. They speak about them with such sneering derision that it's hard to believe that you would treat your fellow citizens that way. Do you believe in democracy? Oh, yes. Oh, no, but not those populists. Oh, no, I believe in democracy, but not for Donald Trump, not for Nigel Farage, not for people who disagree with it. People who disagree with me shouldn't have democracy, but people who agree with me should. But I do believe in democracy. Do you believe in the rule of law should be equal play? Yes. But not to those people. Not to they're Nazis. The law shouldn't apply. Oh, fuck. And these, but now, if you're of a higher intelligence, in my opinion, if you're a higher intelligence, you don't look at the world that way or other people that way. You see it in a far more nuanced way, and believe that when you take away the legal status of your fellow citizens or any of their rights, that things are going to get worse and not better, and that's not an achievement. That's not progression. But we're giving more rights to black lesbians, which means that's okay because we give rights to black lesbians, but we take rights away from Nazis. So they sort of have this childlike fantasy view of the world. Now, here's some people I know. Now, they've inherited quite a decent amount of money. He's from the very well-connected business elite side of things. I wouldn't say he's stupid necessarily, but a genius he ain't. Now he's sort of been gifted CEO roles on big money and with super golden handshake severance packages and things like that. So he's got his multi-million-dollar properties all over the place. He's married into someone again who's comes from a reasonably well-to-do family and who was well connected. She's got some bullshit arts degrees, like she's a master of languages or some shit like that. So she's got a master's as he does. but you sort of they talk. Both of them just talk in globalist talking points. There's no thought they do. They just robotically spurt out the globalist talking points. So. Why is mass migration needed? Oh, because there's a real worker shortage. We've got such a huge worker shortage, just can't find workers. There's no workers, so we just have to bring them in. And the ones we bring in are all doctors and surgeons and rocket scientists. Okay, well, no, they're not. They're nearly all of them. 95% plus of them are illiterate fucking peasants that have never had a job in their life. Why do you think that this dirt poor basket case third world country somehow is only populated with rocket scientists and engineers. I mean, they don't even have a rocket industry in that country. The amount of engineers they have and the amount of doctors they have is the smallest, lowest ratio in the world. Well, why would you think that everyone who comes from there is a is a doctor and a rocket scientist? That's bullshit. I mean, mathematically it couldn't be so. Oh well, it is because I know. No, you don't. You don't know that at all. That's bullshit. You're just repeating the talking points that the globalist propaganda machine pushes out. I mean, I don't say this. I'm far more careful because I want to move slowly and just ask questions and get their attitudes to come out and sort of fettered, rather than ask hard questions, then they come up and I don't get anything. So climate change is a really the world is Greta Thunberg said the world's going to end in 5 years, and we're really worried about that, and got worried for our kids, and we always get our kids to go out and march in climate protests. Okay, so you're marching it. I mean, all right, fine. Why do you have a waterfront property if the world's going to end in 5 years and the ice caps are going to melt? We're thinking about that, and they haven't got an answer for it, and they talk about again, the globalist. It's just pure globalist talking points. These people from the third world have a right to a better life, so they have a right to come in. So every globalist talking point, every propaganda talking, they just repeat. So they're not in any way. They're not in it. And they also talk about how evil the white civilization is, and how white civilization may be erased in the next 100 years by white people should be erased because they're so evil. But you're white. Oh well, not us, the elites. It's just everyone else has to be fuck. And so on they go. They don't see any contradiction in this. They don't see that there's any explanation to be given. They just utter the talking points. So these are the same people that think that they have a right to run the show. Now, how do they end up taking over the institutions and the academia and so on? And there's some sort of thing, because it happened simultaneously across the Western world. So it clearly was not something that was accidental or organic. Far from it. It was a premeditated thing. Now, if you get, say there's the top 20 influence-making institutions, whether they be bureaucracies or universities or whatever, you have to get people in government who will appoint the senior public servant sort of level of managerial level, that will appoint them as instituting the sort of changes that the globalists are going to want. Now, I didn't realize this back in the day. I just thought it was rogue elements, but it wasn't. It was always planned. When radical activists were given jobs in say as judges in a court, or as the chief officer of a government bureaucracy or public service department, or a quango, or think tanks, this sort of thing, or the media. I was surprised at how many people were being replaced by activists. And again, I thought there was just rogue elements or accidental this, but it wasn't. It was all part of a plan. Now, it's not hard if you put the top 5, 10, whatever managers into a public service department. They're all super pro-globalist. And they'll be pressuring people to leave, and they'll be then hiring others who have that view. So it's very much a premeditated attempt to infiltrate and take over from the inside. But they had to have the political class on side first to appoint the people that they want. So the globalists say, okay, well, we'll make sure you get elected. You stupid moron. We'll make sure you get elected, but then you have to do this for us. We'll give you your waterfront mansion. We'll give well-paying jobs to your kids. We'll do all that, but this is what you have to do for us. And I think the globalists just simultaneously across the Western world gave them a shopping list. I said, this is what we want you to do. And and they did, and that's how the infiltration was so swift and so uniform. If there was any form of organic element, it would have taken quite a while to get this going. But the top management was put in. They were either put in, or they were bribed or coerced or intimidated, or your years as a pedophile will be exposed if you don't do what we want, or something like that. Something along those lines would have happened, and this is where it went. So I think that's what occurred. So we've got a bunch of dunderheads, ideological fanatics, that are either agreeing in order to protect their, let's look at it this way: if you're a bit of an idiot and the best you're ever going to hope for is a middle ranking job, say just the average wage a little bit more, but somebody says, look, we'll give you a job that pays 10 times that, and we'll make sure you get some really, really juicy real estate deals. So you've got a really nice house. We'll make sure your kids have really good jobs and get into really good, we'll fix all of that for you. But you have to do this for us. We want the appearance that it's the people's representatives that are doing these things. And we want you to sell this idea to the people. Your job is to be as a salesman for us globalists, for us World Economic Forum goons. Your job is to sell this to your fellow citizens. Your job is to tell them that they're all Nazis, that they don't agree. And so that's how it went. So I think it went along those lines. And I shudder when I meet these people, because they're living in their multi-gazillion dollar houses, and whenever they open their mouths, it's to spout a World Economic Forum talking point, and World Economic Forum propaganda, and it's insane, and it's very sad too. You've been Tacitus today, your Pushback channel. Thank you for listening.